Welcome to the Comicstorian channel, where we take some of your favorite comic books, video games, and movies, and we break down the stories behind them into an audio drama, a dramatic retelling, allowing you to go on by your day-to-day life and still catch up on things that you want to know what happened in. Today we're going to be covering the story of Red Hood Annual, and we've already concluded the primary Red Hood storyline. But if you've been following, at the beginning of DC Rebirth, Red Hood met up with Artemis and Bizarro and created a superhero team that was lovingly called the Dark Trinity. As things progressed for this Dark Trinity, eventually, Artemis and Bizarro, in order to save everyone within Gotham City, had to fly through a dimensional portal and seemingly ended up into one of the other worlds within the multiverse. Red Hood just thought maybe they had died. This is going to be Red Hood Annual number 3, in which we find out what happened to the Dark Trinity. If you're enjoying our stories and you want to chat with us more directly, please consider following us on Twitter at Comicstorian. We can talk about Red Hood, Superman, Batman, Spider-Man, whatever you really want to talk about. We're trying to grow our Twitter presence and would appreciate the support over there if you're enjoying what we create over here. Now, let's get on with the show. As Jason Todd walks through a park, he holsters his gun and he puts back on the hood, stating, "Hey buddy, you got a second?" The young boy Vessel sings on the swing set, telling him, "Sure, anything for you, sir." So Jason kneels down and he says that he knows about his ability to sync with the dead, to use their superpowers, and he needs him to do it right now. Vessel stops swinging and he tells him that he really doesn't want to. Sometimes it hurts. Jason leans in, stating that he really wasn't asking. Either Artemis or Bizarro. Can you find them? So Vessel's body begins to shake and Jason reaches for his gun. But then, Vessel stops. He tells him, "Nope, nothing. Sorry, Mr. Hood." So Jason tells him, "No, it's fine. You did good. Let's go or you'll be late for class." Vessel hops off the swing, stating, "But I have good news though. It didn't hurt that time. It's getting easier to do." And as the two walk out of the Tranquility program, Jason knows that this actually is a good thing. The fact that Vessel can't commune with the ghosts of Artemis and Bizarro means that somewhere out there, they're alive. Now let's go back in time a bit. 6 months to be exact. We're going to see exactly what happened to the ones known as Artemis and Bizarro. After jumping through the quantum doorway in an attempt to save Bizarro as he was mentally digressing, the two found themselves in a strange and faraway land. One where the Hall of Justice was in ruins and it was labeled the Hall of Punishment. Bizarro looks up at all the spikes sticking out of the building and he asks, "We am going in?" And Artemis tells him, "We certainly am." But off in the distance, there are two people watching, known as the Dairy King and Airquote. Dairy King takes a puff of his cigar, lowering his binoculars. It looks like they've got themselves some capes. One of them, they're superheroes that were supposed to save the world. "Call the reinforcements, stat." The young girl next to him lifts her hand up, and as she makes the call, she says, "Yeah, hostiles. Yeah, I'll hold." As Artemis and Bizarro walk into the hall, Bizarro sets his hand on fire with laser vision. Artemis asks him, "Doesn't that hurt?" And Bizarro asks, "Does what hurt?" Artemis sighs, not even bothering to follow up the question, and then stops Bizarro from moving any further. In front of them stands the shadowy figures of the Justice League. And Bizarro asks, "Why am nobody happy to see us?" Artemis tells him that it's not the Justice League, but their statues. They've been destroyed. Someone is trying to tell them something. Just then a voice calls out, "Excuse me, but the museum is closed for the evening. You're not supposed to be here." The two turn back to see a security guard holding a flashlight, and Bizarro quickly freezes up his hand. The guard then asks, "How did you just do that?" "Unless you are capes, bona fide capes." With a light chuckle, the guard says, "I'll show you around a bit, since you don't seem to know where you are. Truth is, I haven't seen a real live cape since Hero Day." Artemis asks, "What is Hero Day?" The guard leads them to a large door, stating that it was the day the whole world fell apart. The day that mere mortals had to get themselves back on track, one hero at a time. The massive doors open and Artemis and Bizarro see Superman's body, his head crushed under the weight of the Daily Planet antenna. Artemis grabs his sword, looking back at the guard, stating that he's going to tell her exactly what happened. The guard says, "Could have been Lex Luthor, Brainiac, hell, a mishap at Star Labs." The thing is, no one really knows. All we know is that the bomb went off, something genetic, like a switch that had been flipped. Every metahuman on Earth had their powers just turned off, and nearly every ordinary human wound up with a superpower. Some got one of each, some got all. Apparently you lorded over people long enough. Some people are eager to settle the score. Suddenly, the ice covering the guard's fist begins to crack, and spikes like what's covering the Hall of Punishment shoot out. Artemis calls upon her axe, but it doesn't come, and instead she feels as if her very essence is being ripped from her. Bizarro catches her asking, "You am okay?" "Me think mostly. Where am mistress?" Artemis tells him that she doesn't know. She summoned her, but she's not here. Too far. Bizarro tells her, "Now a bad time to sleep. Red?" As Bizarro sets Artemis down, spikes shoot out from the ground, impaling Bizarro. He screams in pain and then looks back, stating, "You did this!" The security guard, now covered in spikes, says, "Yeah, and I'll confess, I sure do enjoy putting capes like you in your place. I didn't do it alone, though. Many of us rose up, thousands of us. Without your so-called powers, you were nothing." Soon the spikes begin to crack and Bizarro walks out telling him, "Power does not make you something, but sure am helps. Say goodbye, jerkhead." Seconds later, the security guard can be seen flying through space and into the sun. Bizarro dusts off his hands, with Artemis getting back up, stating that she normally wouldn't condone such an act. But as he put it, he was certain a jerkhead. But they can't stay here. They need to go and get a lay of the land. There could be hundreds of superpower vigilantes, maybe millions. And Bizarro then says, "Or lots!" Outside, a group of superpowered humans patrol the area while Artemis and Bizarro watch from afar. Bizarro asks, "Can we just kill them first? Red her?" She says that she's thinking. But that's when a voice tells her that thinking is the highest cause of death around these parts. The two look back to see a slender man, somewhat looking like the Joker, who says that his name is Knife, Jack Knife. Now stay and be slaughtered by a never-ending wave of superpowered norms, or join the resistance and live to fight another day. So 6 months later, around the time frame of Red Hood's current adventures, a superpowered human named Flutterby flies through the city, telling herself just a little further. But soon her wings of fire fade and she crashes down into the pile of bricks. A voice tells her that she gave it her best shot, but she chose the wrong side in the meta-biological conflagration. She was one of them, but instead she turned coat and chose to die with a bunch of genetic dead ends. Flutterby smiles and says that she supposes that's one way of looking at it, Kennel. Kennel stares for a second in his suit of armor made out of a car, and then says, "Wait, why are you smiling?" A second later, a bearded Bizarro bursts out of the ground, punching a hole in the suit, shouting, "Me am why? Me am Bizarro! People smile when me around!" Kennel falls out of the suit of armor, and Flutterby jumps up shouting to end him. But Bizarro stops her, telling her, "No, Red him said not to kill, so Bizarro not kill. Mostly, you have the jewel thing we needed?" Flutterby hands over the small green jewel, and Bizarro walks away looking at it, stating, "Me am walking away, in case you want to do more for good." In which Flutterby flies up and sets Kennel on fire. Meanwhile, over in the Pentagon, Jackknife holds his hands out of the cell, stating that all it took was one bomb and everything changed. Artemis's voice asks if he really thinks that she is seriously listening to him. Artemis, now having one side of her head shaved, leans against the cell wall when two guards walk up telling her to step back. She knows the drill. She turns her back to them, holding her hands out, stating, yeah. Yet every time that she does as she's told, they tase her anyway. The other guard says not this time, but as he tases her, he laughs, shouting, "Just kidding!" She groans as she starts to get back up, stating that they have 6 seconds before the recharge. Can he do it? So Jackknife jumps over her, stating, "Abso-positively-lutely, your royalness!" He kicks both men in the necks, knocking them out, but as he jumps down on one of them ready to kill, Artemis grabs him by the tie, stating that they don't have time for this. The two make their way through the halls of the Pentagon, and as they enter in the monitor room, a man stops them, stating, "Welcome." He knows who they are and what their pathetic resistance is trying to do, and it ends here. They may call him General Samuel Lane. Artemis tells him that they have decimated his forces over the past few months. What makes him think that he can really defeat them? Lane asks, in a word, reinforcements. Apparently, there's an opening between here and another universe through a quantum wormhole of sorts, which means that they'll have an entirely new Earth from which they can cull metas while making normal people more plentiful in the process. The screen lights up with images of Artemis and Bizarro's home world, and Jackknife asks, "That's where you came from, huh?" Artemis then asks, "How do you plan on delivering your genetic bomb?" Lane says, "Admittedly, I do not know." But another voice says, "But for me, it's child's play." A moment later, a giant brain with a face comes rolling up, and Artemis says, "Lex." A hologram of Lex's face appears, and he asks, "Have we met?" And Artemis says, to her eternal shame, she used to work for him in another reality. Jackknife then says that that's Lex. He's the guy behind Hero Day? And Artemis says, was there ever really any doubt? But why would you think that you can send a bomb across the universe? The brain turns around and slowly wheels away, and Lex says, quite easily. As you can see, this quantum doorway that I have found and repaired can allow me access to the multiverse. No other individual but myself could have fixed this. Jackknife looks up to see the fragmented quantum doorway put together, and he asks, should they be scared of a glowing block of wood? What am I missing here? Artemis thinks to herself, stating that she cannot let Lex have this. She must. But as Artemis jumps into the air, Lex electrocutes both Artemis and Jackknife, stating that they're pathetic creatures. Quietly, she says, now, B. Lex asks, B what? Just then, the shadow of a man appears, and Bizarro jumps through with other members of the Resistance shouting, Outlaws! Outlaw! As Jackknife grabs the genetic bomb from one of the guards, he tosses it to Bizarro. And the shadow then grabs onto Lane, shouting that you may have destroyed our base of operations, but you cannot kill the brains behind our plan. Artemis tells him that he would be surprised. She comes down, slashing through Lex's giant brain, and the hologram begins to fade. Bizarro holds up the small jewel from before the bomb and says, done. So Jackknife then takes the bomb and says that this should reverse everyone's genetic alterations, even if most of the original heroes are dead. But maybe it'll be better that way with no one having powers. Artemis takes Bizarro by the hand and tells him that heroes and outlaws are wherever you least expect to find them. You realize that there's no way to know if this is actually going to work, if your door is going to bring us back to our original world. Bizarro says, me know where Red Her is. Bizarro will be. And with that, the two jump through the quantum door, and hopefully, they're returning home. One of my favorite storylines that came out of DC Rebirth was Red Hood and the Outlaws, the Dark Trinity, Bizarro, Artemis, and Red Hood. And while the direction that Red Hood went kind of was good for his character in general, I still miss the original Dark Trinity. I think they could have done so much more with the possibilities of that. So the fact that Artemis and Bizarro were not entirely removed, as it turns out, and they're now returning, I'm excited. I don't know where this is gonna go, but I wanna know what's gonna happen when they find out the things that Red Hood has been doing without them around. Don't you? Well, if you do, consider subscribing to our channel because we will continually be covering the Red Hood storyline. We'll be giving you the whole whatever happens with the year of the villain and the Red Hood and Bizarro kind of a thing and all that kind of stuff. Anyway, don't forget, we could chat about all of this on Twitter. If you go ahead and follow me at Twitter, at Comicstorian, we're making a push to try and grow that, and I would really appreciate some of your support to get that getting to a more respectable number. Also, don't forget, if you want to know what's going to happen to Red Hood, or maybe follow Spider-Man storylines, Batman storylines, Deadpool storylines, consider subscribing to our channel. We cover about 4 different complete stories a week right here at the Comicstorian channel. We then do a full story, which is a compilation of all the older videos into one giant video. We do various lists here, such as telling you what's going on with your favorite superheroes or ways to kill Batman, and we do podcasting here on a frequent basis. We also function a gaming channel known as Eligible Monster and our Patreon where you get early access to everything. We do a lot in our company and we'd love your support and we really do appreciate it, but if you like this, please consider subscribing, hitting that bell, and I'll see you next time right here.